In the mornings, while leaving for work, our dad would make a lot of noise. He slammed cabinet doors, slung chairs, threw things, and raised hell, making sure he woke up all of us. On his way out, he would slam the solid hardwood door so hard the house shook. The neighbors became accustomed to hearing it. One joked it was his cue to get up. Gratefully, this particular morning our dad left quietly. Little did we know it was just the quiet before the storm. We three came home hungry after school as usual. Making a beeline for the refrigerator, I was surprised to discover a baked yet untouched chicken, still wrapped neatly in foil. Ignoring the strangeness of this, I sent out calls of delight and transferred the treasure to the table under full view of all. We then turned back the foil to expose the entire feast. A few slices of bread were scrounged up from the bare cabinets. I graciously accepted the heel. We were fair and generous with our portions, ensuring each a delectable sandwich. Judy went out to the porch to relish hers in the sunlight, while Roy and I stood contentedly around the kitchen table. With strips of meat peeled from its ribs, the cavity had become visible and something caught my eye. "Wait, what is that?" I asked Roy. We both looked closer. Shocked, we recognized it as the white poison tablets used around our house. Judy was still out on the porch, and I rushed to her yelling, "Stop! Don't eat it!" She had just taken another bite, which I insisted she spit out. She was not too happy about having to do so. "It's been poisoned," I said. She did not want to believe me. Her daddy wouldn't do such a thing, not to her. Together, we stood looking at our deceptive meal. It was undeniable, and we knew it, that none other than our dad would have done this. We were so despondent, all in our own personal way, that no one had much to say. While ordering that no one eat any more of it, I rewrapped it and set it back in the refrigerator. I pictured the diabolical plan of our dad faking his departure to work, only to sneak back to the house with a freshly bought chicken. He plants the poison, adding spices to entice, and bakes the chicken. Once baked, he places it into the refrigerator and leaves the scene of the crime. So premeditated, and the message of his contempt for us, his own children, was shocking. We had done nothing to warrant this offense on his part. The man was simply evil. Later that day, as if by clockwork, our dad returned home. He sat quietly in the living room, attempting to look inconspicuous. Being the only one home, I moved about in the kitchen, keenly aware of his presence. After some moments, he called, "Did y'all have anything to eat?" As if concerned. Acting so nonchalantly, I called back, "Yes, we did. We found a baked chicken in the refrigerator. There's some left over. Do you want some?" The refrigerator door was open and my hand was on the pan. He could see me there. No, he didn't want any. "Are you sure?" I pressed again. "He had already eaten," he said. I thought, "Yeah, you know about it 'cause you did it." He continued to sit quietly, but ventured to ask, "Did Judy eat any of it?" She was his favorite. He wouldn't want any harm to come to her. His plan had not been calculated enough to spare her, but only due to his lack of intelligence. And his lack thereof had worked in our favor. It was not a very well thought out plan. Rolaids-sized tablet sitting at the bottom of a baked chicken. He wanted to rush to Judy's side to ensure she was all right. "She's okay, just outside somewhere," I volunteered. In fact, we were all fine, no thanks to him. Sometime after this incident, I became very ill. I started vomiting at school and I had to stay to the end of the day. Then I had to ride the school bus home, fearing that I would throw up on the bus in front of everybody. Several times I had to stifle it. I threw up about 3 times on the walk home. Others kept their distance. With my head on a towel at the raised window in the back room, I threw up several more times. Existing somewhere in twilight, all I could think was, "Oh God, I'm sick." Enter the beings. True to nature, they picked me up. I was on a table, always, and 2 moved around me. Their demeanor was that of urgency. They didn't know what was wrong with me. One was handling equipment, and I remember a hose while the other asked me for any information. Trying to cooperate, all my foggy mind came up with was, maybe my dad tried to poison us again. Immediately, the questioning being instructed the other to go find out from our dad. Now, there are 2 ways they can do this. The most common way would be from above. They would monitor his responses after interjecting thoughts that he would not know from his own. This would get him thinking about a thing in which he would expose the answer. This is used in many situations. In other words, this is used often. They also use this method to make subtle influences like, don't take this road, or to tell us what the truth is. We would think this is our own intuition. The other way is not used as much, but the beings could freeze everyone and question my dad, a non-abductee, face to face. It is very rare that they punish the offender, but they can, and they have. One time my dad wrecked on his motorcycle and said that he knew it was because of what he had done to me, not specifying what that was. After my exam by the Greys, I awaken with my head still on the windowsill. But before moving to the living room, I look out the window and notice there is nothing on the ground. Where was the evidence that I had been throwing up? Was it taken for examination? Oh, never mind. I go and lie on the couch. Within the hour, my dad arrived, and seeing me on the couch, I told him I was sick. He said that he had gotten the feeling that something was wrong and needed to go home, but he had thought it was Judy. Thanks, Dad. He asked if I wanted to go to the doctor. Feeling better, I declined. He then offered to go and buy me a Coke, still considered a miracle cure in those days. I accepted the Coke, and he brought one to me. This was so unlike him. There was a period when I began saying out loud to myself how much I hated our father. I've hated him since the day I was born, I declared on more than one occasion. Well, aliens can't resist testing such a hypothesis. I found myself standing before a hologram, presenting the day I came home from the hospital. The white wood-framed house of my grandparents was before me. My dad held me in his arms, standing under the tree. Somehow, they had found the first moment my dad and I had interacted. It was the day they brought me home from the hospital, and I was only days old. And you know what? It seems like we were really there viewing this entire scene. It seemed as if I was in the picture, yet observing it at the same time. The sun shone down, hurting my eyes, and I squirmed in protest. Grandmother came out of the house toward us. Suddenly, Roy, curly-topped and only 2 years old, ran from around the house, startling the two beings behind me. They were not expecting him, but were quickly relieved to recognize his sweet harmlessness. They knew exactly who he was. "Where's Erlene?" Grandmother asked. She was waiting in the car. Roy came up and began playing with the untied string from my baby shoe. Grandmother said, "Wait here, I want to get something," and went back into the house. She returned with a camera, one of those old ones you had to look down into. Dad started to push Roy out of the picture, but Grandmother stopped him with, "Now, Walter, he loves his baby sister." I started thinking ahead into the future. I saw many things, including beyond that day and time. When I wanted to see my own death, they stopped me, saying, "No, you cannot know that." When we were ready to leave, Dad passed me through the window to my mother's loving hands. It seems I was now in my tiny body and no longer an observer. I felt the motion of being passed through the air to my mother in the front seat. Roy wanted to get in on Dad's side, but he refused to let him. He came around to the passenger side, causing Mother to have to lean forward. She squished me some, and I started to complain, but nestled in her warmth. From that day on, I thought that I had remembered this experience on my own, for the memory stayed with me. A big aspect of the alien presence is to study our mental facilities. Did I really hate my father from the day I was born? They had to find out. I have learned to be careful what I say and think. Sensing it can trigger an unwanted experience. An abductee's thoughts really can be their worst enemy. I would suggest keeping your thoughts in check. It's good practice anyway. We have seen how alien abductions are part of the woven tapestry of an abductee's life. If we want to get the full picture, which brings deeper understanding, we have to take into consideration how the Greys are intimately involved and intrigued about who and what we are.